Hey, this is Jacob, and in this video, we're going to be going over how to track your language learning progress. Now, outside of learning the languages themselves, I would say one of the most powerful things that I do on my language learning journey is tracking my language learning progress. It's really powerful because it really gives you a way to see how you're improving in your languages over time, be able to see what you're doing, like what you've been focusing on, and it could be extremely motivational. Now, there are a couple of different ways that you can go about tracking your language learning progress. So, in this video, we're going to be going over three of the biggest ones that you can do. But you may want to stick around until the end of this video because the last one is actually my favorite and the one that I'm using currently. So, the first way that you can go about tracking your language learning progress is using good old pen and paper. Now, the good thing about using pen and paper is that there's absolutely no internet required. You don't have to like worry about getting a Wi Fi signal or anything like that. You can use a notebook, no matter what size, like a medium size, large size, and you could just go and you can use that to track your language learning progress. And another thing that's cool about pen and paper is that it can also like double as a journal as well. So in addition to tracking your language learning progress, you could like write down a few of your thoughts, maybe like how you felt on that particular day, like maybe any particular wins that you had, anything that you sort of like struggled with. So you can kind of have the best of both worlds on when you utilize pen and paper. So when it comes to using pen and paper, the whole idea behind it is that you want to write down things that are like worth noting down. So this could be anything like the number of hours that you watch, like the amount of hours that you've like listened in your target language. Maybe like if you're practicing your writing, it could be like the number of words that you have written. Or if to say like you had like a conversation with someone, you could talk about like the conversation, like how long the conversation was. And you can also use like while you're writing down like this stuff, like you can like write down like a few little reflections. So with pen and paper, like this is definitely a tried and true method. It's not a method that I use personally, but if you prefer like just having that analog feel, so to speak, just feeling the pen in your hand and having a notebook, like it's very tactile like sensation. So if that's up your alley, you can definitely utilize some pen and paper when it comes to your tracking your language learning progress. Now, the next way that you can go about tracking your language learning progress is by utilizing a language learning app. So there are a ton of different apps out there. I'm sure you're familiar with them, like Duolingo, Closemaster, LingQ. There's a ton of apps out there, and more are coming out all the time. So when it comes to language learning apps, there are ways that you can go about tracking your language learning progress that could be pretty useful to you. So one of the most basic ways that you can go about tracking your language learning progress is just keeping track of your streak. So this is something that you'll see in like Duolingo or Closemaster. You go, you like do a lesson on Duolingo, and it records your streak. So by just having and maintaining that streak, you can go and have like some proof to yourself, like have tangible proof to yourself that you're very consistent when you're doing your language learning, because that's arguably one of the biggest things when it comes to your language learning is that you want to be doing it on a consistent basis. Like you don't want to treat your language learning as something that you just cram like whenever you can fit it in. So by utilizing a streak tracker, like in one of these language learning apps, it kind of gets you, it forces you, so to speak, to be able to show up every single day and to do your language learning. Now, besides like tracking your streak, another way that you can utilize the language learning app is to track the number of words that you read. So the one that I'm aware of is LingQ. Now there are some issues with how LingQ goes about tracking words. So you do have to be mindful of that. Like sometimes it could be a little bit higher or a little bit lower, depending on the language. But it does give you sort of a rough estimate of the progress that you've been making in your target language. Generally speaking, the more amount of words that you read, the more amount of input that you get in your target language, the more proficient you're going to become. I mean, of course, there are other things you have to do besides, like tracking like the amount of words that you read, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And last but not least, there are language learning apps where you're able to track the number of hours of input that you're getting. So input can just refer to like videos that you watch or podcasts that you listen to or anything that requires either listening. Yeah, requires listening basically. So yeah, so the perfect example of this would be the Dreaming Spanish website. So if you're learning Spanish, you can create a free account on the website, and as you watch videos on the website, they're able to track how many hours that you've how many hours of input that you've gotten. So, the only issue that I have when it comes to utilizing a language learning app to track your language learning progress is the fact that in a way it sort of binds you to that particular app, because if you're tracking your if you're tracking your language learning progress using, say, like Duolingo, and let's say you decide to like leave Duolingo because maybe you're done with it, or you're just kind of over it or whatever. Now your entire method of language learning tracking pretty much goes out with it. So it's like throwing out the baby with the bathwater. But I mean, if it's an app that you plan on using for a long time, like for instance, like something like LinkU, where basically you use it to help you with like reading and consuming content in your target language, then it may not be too big of a deal that you're sort of like attached to that platform. So that is one thing you want to be aware of when it comes to utilizing language learning apps, that it does kind of lock you in. So you want to make sure that whatever app that you decide to use, you want to be utilizing it for the long term. Now, next, yeah. Oh, actually, this wrong slide. So yeah. So next, when it comes to you're tracking your language learning progress, that is, this is my favorite method when it comes to doing it, and that is utilizing a time tracking app. So when you have a dedicated app, like for one, like it's going to be either like on your phone or on your computer. So you should be able to access it from virtually anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. And these days, most people have like pretty reliable access to the internet, so that shouldn't be an issue for most people. And especially like when you're utilizing an app, usually the apps will have some type of like graph or chart. They can utilize them to analyze your trends, so you're able to see like how much time that you've been putting into your language learning, like has it increased, has it increased, or have you been doing it like on a consistent basis. So that could be very useful. Another thing that I really enjoy about using like a dedicated time tracking app is that it really helps to just keep me motivated, because like every day, like I go and I like log time into my time tracking app, and I can just see all the effort that I put in, like not only for that day but all the time beforehand. So just seeing those numbers goes up just is very motivating for me, and I'm able to see that I am progressing, because you're going to notice a lot of times in your language learning journey, you're going to be wondering to yourself like, yo, like am I even like making progress in my language learning? And that's just more of a subjective feeling. But ideally, I mean, more often than not, like as long as you're putting in like the required effort every day into your language learning, then you're definitely going to make progress. And once you can, if you could have like a way to see yourself like putting in like that increased amount of progress, like just seeing those number goes up, so to speak, utilizing the time tracking app, then it could be very motivating, and it can just help you keep going, especially when you have those tough days. So there are a few different apps that you can use when it comes to like using a dedicated time tracking app. The one that I strongly recommend is the Refold time tracking app. So right now, at the time that I'm recording this video, the Refold app is in beta, but you can utilize it for free. So I also have a dedicated video for that. So I will leave a link to that down below, as well as on the end screen. But that is the app that I personally recommend. Also, just to be aware, at the time that I'm recording this video, there currently isn't like a website version of the app. You can only utilize it on your phone. But I mean, as long as you have an Android or like an iOS phone, then you should be able to access the app without any issues. Another app that I would recommend, well, I would recommend at one point, would be the Toggle app. I actually had used this app before I was using the Refold app, but I am aware that there has been a couple of changes on their end as far as the Toggle app goes. So I'm not 100% confident if I can utilize it right now. I mean, I would recommend like if you do utilize Toggle, just to look into it, just to make sure that it's good for your use case. But this is an app that I use for quite a while when it came to like tracking like my languages. And there are some other apps as well. One called Polylogger, as well as another one called LingoTrack. So I don't have a ton of experience with either one of these apps. Like they do seem pretty legit. I know Polylogger has been around for a while, and I believe LingoTrack is relatively new. But I definitely recommend checking them out. But if you want my personal recommendation as far as utilizing a time tracking app, then hands down, I would definitely go with the Refold app, and you can try it out completely for free. So, with that said, that is all I have to say today in regards to tracking your language learning progress. Now, if you utilize a different app, or maybe if you have your own particular method when it comes to tracking your language learning progress, definitely feel free to leave a comment down below, because I'm definitely open to seeing like what you guys have to say in regards to this. And if you enjoyed this video, I definitely would appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to this channel. You're free to unsubscribe at any time. I do plan on releasing videos every week on this channel, related to language learning, just in providing as well as tools and techniques to help you, get to the next level in your language learning journey. So this is Jake Laguerre. I'm signing off, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.